Greetings, fellow pastoral care students. This semester, for my paper topic, I chose to address the void in self-care strategies that the vast majority of individuals who are pastors or in church leadership employ in their own lives. As part of this, I sought to uncover where this void occurs and possibly some of the reasons that pastors remain wildly unsuccessful in creating opportunities for self-care for themselves. The thesis of my paper stands: a significant number of pastors spend so much of their time caring for the members of their church that they become inefficient to care for themselves. My paper uses Gherkin's quadrilateral theory. There are elements of tradition care, there are elements of Christian community care, and then from a broader lens, also from a cultural context. I sought to determine why this is occurring on a broad scale and determine what is being done to combat the lack of effort being put forth by a good number of ministers to provide themselves with time for self-care. The research that I found was from many different cultures, countries, and even continents, as well as from a varying range of denominations, faith movements, or even religions themselves. Each study, regardless of what culture or even continent or denomination or religion that the research was coming from, all pointed to basically the same end result, that for the most part, the majority of pastors or clergy members lack sufficient skills or strategies for providing themselves with self-care. Each study pointed to these clear results, even when different or varying elements existed. The one study that I did come across that looked at individuals who were identified by a fellow clergy member in their own church or faith organization as having a thriving ministry, were asked to explain what strategies they employed, and the results of that study compared to those of other studies from clergy members who did not provide self-care both landed with the need in the same areas. Example being, those that were in thriving ministry acknowledged the need for social support. Those in studies from those perhaps not in a thriving ministry also identified the need for social support. They just acknowledged lacking that social support. No matter the location or the organization, it seems that all of the research that is found is all pointing to the same thing. Some of the pitfalls of my paper were that I struggled to find a turning point. I know that I wasn't completely successful in presenting a way to bridge the problem into the solution. And I know that there is a larger missiological response, but I'm having a hard time giving that response a clear voice. Because of the specific population that my paper seeks to address, it's been difficult for me to conclude how the church as a whole can be proactive in combating the lack of self-care experienced by the leaders in their church. Also, as a way to give this specific topic a distinctly apostolic Pentecostal tone, I did draw attention to the general resources that UPCI ministers have through the organization itself, through district organizational at the district level, but also through online resources through Ministry Central and Launcher Ministry. But because of the population that I desire to implement this in, I do want for there to be a distinctly apostolic Pentecostal conclusion. There's ample examples in Scripture that model the necessary steps for self-care, from the day of rest that God took during the first week of creation to the instructions that Jesus gave to the disciples themselves. Jesus is recorded on a number of occasions leaving the masses to rest either alone or part of the smaller group. It is in these last two examples that I desire to create my self-care model. As I develop a self-care model, I feel like I will be better able to implement my pastoral theology, which is another area that my paper is lacking. I feel like these two together will work together to draw clear lines as ways to address the problem, rather than just stating that there is a problem in this area of ministry. Overall, one thing that was reported time and time again in each one of the studies is there was not an intentional reason or an intentional act of failing to provide self-care by pastors. This is something that is the result of a lack of time or a lack of awareness by the part of the ministers who were part of the study. It seems, considering the results of such broad research, that this is an issue that stands in every denomination, faith-based movement, religion, and deserves ample care. Because of my desire to implement in an apostolic Pentecostal arena, I do desire to have distinct apostolic qualities. So I look very much forward to your feedback on my paper.